Johann Friedrich was an unemployed, unattached carpenter in Tangermunde on the River Elbe in Germany. He saw a barge loaded of persecuted Lutherans from Silesia heading for Hamberg to immigrate to Australia, and makes a leap of faith to join them. After a 3-month trip on the Princess Louise, he arrives in Port Misery, now known as Port Adelaide, on the 7th of August 1849, 175 years ago. There was a quick stop in Clemsic, and then he moves into Harndorf, where he establishes himself as a good law-abiding carpenter and citizen. He does well for himself, and 6 years later he convinces his older brother Wilhelm to follow him out to the Promised Land, which they did in 1856, when Wilhelm, his wife, Wilhelmina, and their 4 eldest children boarded the La Rochelle and journeyed to Australia. Not only reuniting with his brother, but there was also the added bonus in that one of the passengers on that ship was Louise Kalisch, who 18 months later would become Friedrich's wife. Friedrich and Louise had 5 children over a period of 7 years from 1858. Firstborn Wilhelm, then followed by Friedrich Jr., then Maria, born in 1861, followed by Johanna Louise in 1863, and finally Karl Heinrich August Jr., born in 1866. In 1859, after owning and transferring a number of properties in Harndorf, as well as building the St. Michael's Church with his brother, he decided to try his hand at farming, and leased 140 acres, 2 miles north of Harrogate, on the property to be known as Gumvale. He built a 2-room house, and in 1866, the year that was the youngest Heinrich is born, Friedrich purchased Gumvale in his own right. The new farmers began cropping, as that was what they were used to in the old country. Their first couple of harvests went well, however, not allowing the land to fallow and Australian soils becoming less fertile than their European counterpart. The new farmers soon had failing harvests. Many left the district to continue cereal farming in other areas of South Australia, Victoria and New South Wales. Others diversified into mixed farming, such as potatoes, sheep and cattle, learning to adapt to their new environment. But 2 years later, after feeling ill, he walked to the local hospital and then was transferred to Adelaide by bullock dray, suffering from pneumonia, and sadly he died. He was buried in a pauper's grave in the West Terrace Cemetery under the name Fred Gladigau, and the current family only discovered his gravesite this year of 2024, when early attempts to find him under his real name had failed. In the meantime, not long after Brother 2's Friedrich's death, Brother 1 Wilhelm, who had been living at Williams Creek, decided to pack up his wagon and young family, now with 8 children, and head for greener pastures in the southeast. Firstly at Mount Gambier, and then they moved on to Natimuc in southwestern Victoria. After Brother 2's untimely death, his wife Louise, then 47, with her 5 young children, ran the farm by herself with the help of Wilhelm, who was 9 at the time, and Friedrich just 7. Known as Uncle Bill, a bachelor all of his life, continued to live at Gumvale and run the farm for the rest of his working life. Friedrich Jr. helped to run the farm until he was in his late 20s, when he met and married Anna Lenger in 1889 and took over their family farm at Pinevale. Their 2 daughters, Mary and Louise, with the view that there was no marriage prospects in the district, decided to head to Adelaide in the mid-1880s.
Bluebirds fly, and the dream that you did to, oh why, oh why.
Young Heinrich decided to take on an apprenticeship in carpentry and wheelmaking at the age of 18, firstly in Harndorf and then at Mount Torrens. He married Hulda Schubert in 1902, and shortly after they moved to Murray Bridge. During the First World War, the 3 brothers, Friedrich Wilhelm, known as Bill, Johannes Friedrich, known as Fred, and Karl Heinrich August, known as Harry, were considered essential workers, but too old and therefore were not enlisted. However, their nephew, Mary May's first son, Herbert George May, died in the First World War in Turkey while a prisoner of war. He posthumously received the Anzac Medal. After the war, Uncle Bill walked to Murray Bridge, where Heinrich, Hulda and family were living, and convinced them to come back to Gumvale, with the promise to eventually take over the farm, which they did in 1920. Then 10 years later, when Hulda passed away, Uncle Bill reneged on the agreement and kicked out his younger brother's family, who had to move to his daughter's place in Stockwell.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Someday wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind.
Friedrich's children all married and settled in the Adelaide Hills, including Martha Hartman at Charleston, Jack at Birdwood, Emma Fendler at Tungkello, and Oscar at Pinevale Harrogate.
Like lemon drops high above the chimney top, that's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dream that you did to, oh why can't oh, someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops high above the chimney top, that's where dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true.
Johannes and his wife Selma settled there and paid out his two sisters over a period of time. Johannes Oskar became a successful farmer, specialising in sheep and dairy. He also had a side interest in beekeeping in Kapunda. J.O. was a district councillor member for 44 years. A skilled photographer was also his hobby. Considered very social and family man, also loved to offer visitors a hearty glass of port.
The rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dream that you did to, oh why can't
Heinrich's other children had previously married and settled at various places, including Vera Schwartz at Stockwell, Harry at Nuriyutpa, Clara Withy at Nils Flat, Yadunda, and Dorothy Schrappel at Tanunda. Louise Alwera, known as Auntie Vera, died while celebrating her 50th birthday. She had thyroid disease in 1952. Karl Heinrich August Jr., founding member and early fire chief of the Nuriyutpa CFS Brigade. Clara Sophia had 11 children within 16 years whilst living on a farm at Nils Flat, just south of Yadunda. She lived to 95 years of age. She was born the same year as Sir Donald Bradman, and it was said she never made 100, but in the innings of life, she outdid Donald by 3 years. Doretha Beatty married Tom Schrappel and lived at Tanunda, best known for running a successful dress shop called Dolores Dress Shop. He was a bricklayer by trade and ran a small vineyard. Oscar Wilhelm was a bit of a character. He loved a joke and a bit of a schlock with his friends. Known as Mick, purchased Gumvale from his Uncle Bill when he married Dora in 1938. He had great vision in improving production and establishing irrigation. He built a dam, put in a bore, but due to lack of water, the irrigation project was a failure. He then sold Gumvale, purchasing a farm in Gumaraka. Dairy farming and apple orchards were his specialty. In 1955, when Mick's son Wayne was born, he sold out and bought a mallee farm during the 1956 floods in Alawuna, just south of Loxton, when everything was lush and green. That was short-lived, when in 1956 they had 2 years of drought. Things were so bad they survived on just rabbits alone. Wilhelm, Friedrich and Heinrich, whilst living at Harrogate, were active members of the Springhead Lutheran Church, quite often walking the 8-kilometre distance from Harrogate as the horses needed to rest on Sundays. Louise Gladigau and descendants, Wilhelm, Friedrich, Anna, Heinrich, Hulda, Martha Hartmann, Oscar, Selma and Barry Gladigau, were all buried in the Springhead Cemetery.
The Depression year. With unemployment in Australia at an all-time record high, it was inevitable that the year 1931 should open on a dismal note. Yes, it was depression with a capital D. the deepest into which the world had ever been plunged. 1 in 5 of the workforce was jobless. A grim, foreboding picture pertinently painted by Labour Prime Minister Scullin. It was the day of the dole. Farmers were in a dilemma. The world's acreage under wheat was the highest ever, with a record 18 million acres sown in Australia. But a large carryover in North America killed the market, and the price of wheat plummeted 53% from the 1929 level of 5 and 2pence a bushel to 2 and 5pence farthing. Commodity prices continued to fall. You could buy 3 pounds of rump steak for 1 and 3. A leg of mutton for 2 and 6, if you had the necessary. Here are the real things, the two-armed bandits of the outback. In 1934, kangaroo hunting had progressed beyond the realms of sport. It was now a business, a necessary business. For the population of the marsupials had rocketed to a tremendous proportion. The men of the land could no longer stand by and see their fences wrecked, crops and pastures ravaged. The hunt was grim and determined. Only a selected few are caged for shipment to zoos. Many swarms of locusts or grasshoppers 10 miles in extent can travel 25 miles between dusk and dawn. In 1934, these first cousins to the plague locusts caused £3 million worth of damage. None gayer that year than in Adelaide, where the centenary celebrations of the foundation of the colony of South Australia were in full swing. In the 100-year span, the population of the city of churches had grown from a mere 546 to 317,000, and few missed the colourful cavalcade of floats tracing the growth of the colony. Just as a stockpile of boots was built up, so were supplies of wheat. Here at Homebush, bags by the million were stacked. Wartime wealth of a rich continent. Not a job for a white-collar worker, this, but one which called for abnormal strength and the knack which makes it look so easy. Food for a nation and an empire.